His reputation arrived before he did. 40 years of service, steel in his spine, a mind that had planned operations across 3 oceans, and a voice that had once steadied men in the darkest hours of war. Admirals were respected. Hale was feared. Even the seagulls circling above the naval base seemed to quiet when his SUV rolled past the checkpoint. Sailors straightened unconsciously, mechanics paused their work, and junior officers sucked in their stomachs as though the admiral's gaze alone could detect flaws in their posture. But Rowan Hale wasn't here today for posture. Or inspection. Or speeches wrapped in patriotic phrases. He was here because of a single line in a midnight report. A civilian contractor intervened, prevented loss of life, displayed unusual tactical awareness. The name, James Ward. The note in the classified annex, possible prior Black Ops involvement. The crossed-out phrase beneath it, call sign matches ghost. Black ink smothered the rest, but Admiral Hale had seen enough. Ghost. God help him. He stepped out of his SUV, boots hitting the ground with a thud that echoed across the concrete. The wind ripped across the parade grounds, tugging at his coat, carrying the salty bite of the sea with it. This base, Pacific Point Naval Command, wasn't the kind of place ghosts appeared. Or so he had believed. He walked with purpose toward the far industrial complex where maintenance crews worked on equipment that rarely made headlines but kept the Navy running. Hydraulic lifts, pressure systems, fuel relays, complex machines that kept warships alive. And yesterday, one had almost killed 2 young sailors, almost, because someone had seen the danger before it happened, and not the officers supervising, not the trained technicians, not the safety inspectors. A civilian contractor no one paid attention to. A man who, according to the report, moved with instinctive precision and executed preemptive countermeasures consistent with Tier 1 tactical response. That line alone kept Rowan awake until dawn. A Tier 1 ghost working inside his base, impossible, except the world had a cruel habit of reminding him nothing stayed buried forever. Rows of massive machinery stood like steel giants as he turned into the maintenance bay. Sparks shot from a welding station in the corner. The sharp smell of oil and heated metal filled the air. Crewmen stood gathered in a loose semicircle around a man crouched beside a thick hydraulic assembly. James Ward. The admiral recognized him instantly, not because his face was familiar, but because his presence was. That stillness. That awareness. That quiet readiness coiled beneath an ordinary exterior. Ghosts didn't announce themselves, they simply existed, silently calculating exits, threats, angles. Rowan's stomach tightened. James rose slowly, wiping grease from his hands with a scrap of cloth, the kind of cloth mechanics use daily. But nothing about the way he moved was mundane. His arms were scarred, not the kind from accidents, but the kind earned in darkness, in firefights no one documented. His posture was relaxed, but not loose, grounded, anchored, perfectly balanced. And his eyes, those were the same eyes Rowan had seen in a desert years ago, lit by burning debris as a silent operator dragged wounded men out of a kill zone, the same eyes belonging to the man who vanished after the Ghost program collapsed. Mr. Ward, Admiral Hale said. James looked up for a split second. Nothing moved, not the workers, not the admiral, not even the dust motes drifting through the harsh workshop lights. Something electric passed between the two men. Recognition. History. Secrets. Then James nodded. Sir. May I have a word? Sure, James said calmly, but his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Let me finish this. He adjusted one last valve with startling speed and precision, then stepped away. The admiral noticed the workers watching him, the way they seemed relieved now that he'd created some distance between himself and the machinery. Not relieved by the admiral, relieved by James, like they had seen something in him yesterday, something that didn't belong in a quiet workshop. James took off his gloves and tossed them onto the workbench. A little girl's voice chimed from behind him. Daddy! Look! A girl, maybe 7, small, bright-eyed, with a wild ponytail, held up a cardboard drawing marked with loops of red marker. She sat perched on a crate like she belonged in this noisy mechanical world. James's whole expression softened. Rowan saw it. The shift. The humanity that cracked through the soldier's armor. That girl was his anchor, his reason for disappearing. Perhaps, the admiral swallowed, throat tightening unexpectedly. Men like Ghost 5 didn't get normal lives. They weren't meant to. The world they came from didn't allow it. Daddy, the girl asked again, swinging her legs. Is that man your boss? James glanced at Rowan. Something like that. The Admiral didn't miss the protective way James angled himself slightly toward her. She was his world. That made what Rowan had come to say even harder. "Let's talk," Rowan said. They stepped aside, though the workers still pretended not to listen. "You were on the scene yesterday," Rowan began. James nodded once. "Your report says you identified a catastrophic failure before anyone else noticed. How did you see it coming?" James shrugged lightly, but the lie was in his eyes. "Experience," he said. "What kind of experience?" "Military," James answered simply. "That's not the whole truth." A long silence stretched between them. The air seemed to thicken with all the words James refused to speak. Rowan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Your file is missing pages, Ward. Entire chapters. Redactions that only appear in one type of record." James's shoulders stiffened. "You know what I'm talking about," Rowan said. James looked away. The Admiral's voice dropped to a whisper. "What was your call sign?" James didn't answer a word. Rowan pressed. "What was your call sign?" The maintenance bay went eerily quiet. Even the welding sparks seemed to pause in midair. James clenched the rag in his hand. Then, softly, "Ghost 5. Rowan felt his breath leave him in a rush. The last time he had heard that name, the world had nearly lost a city. You're alive," Rowan whispered, voice hollow. James's eyes hardened. "Don't sound so disappointed." "No," Rowan said, shaking his head. "No, I'm relieved. Shocked. But relieved." James studied him carefully, gauging whether he meant it. Behind them, the little girl called out, "Daddy? Are you coming back?" "In a minute, sweetheart," James replied without turning, though Rowan saw him flinch, barely, but enough to reveal how much this conversation threatened the fragile life he'd built. Rowan inhaled slowly. "What happened yesterday? It wasn't just instinct, was it?" he asked. James finally met his gaze. "Someone tampered with that line. Whoever it was knew how to make it look accidental. And they waited." "Waited for what?" "For me." James's voice dropped to ice. "They wanted a reaction." A chill crawled up the Admiral's spine. "Ward," he murmured, "are you telling me someone is hunting Ghost Program operatives?" "Not operatives," James said. "Just me." "And you think it's tied to the old mission?" James didn't blink. "I know it is." The Admiral exhaled sharply, tension surging through him. "Why didn't you report this sooner?" "Because I thought I could outrun it." "And now?" James glanced at his daughter. "That was before she saw a man watching us last week." "Same man near the incident point yesterday." Rowan swore under his breath. "Your daughter is in danger." James's eyes turned dark, deadly, reminding Rowan exactly why he was once the most feared operator in Black Ops history. "If they come near her," James said quietly, "Ghost 5 won't stay buried." The storm outside growled low, rolling across the coastline like a warning, and Rowan Hale knew one thing with absolute certainty: something old was awakening, something dangerous, and Ghost 5, whether he liked it or not, was about to be pulled back into the shadows he had escaped to. Egar Aapichahain, main photo prompts Bibana Dune ISS expanded part Kalia.